Welcome to the Inbound Back Office Podcast, where we chat with smart agency owners about agency challenges. I'm Holly Reed, strategist at Inbound Back Office, plug and play back office support for your marketing agency. Today on the show, we get to welcome Aly Nauta, founder and CEO of Connective Consulting, to talk to us about how disruptive digital strategy is intended to expand brands' visibility and reach. Welcome, Aly.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yes, I'm excited to have you here today. Before we get started, why don't you tell us a little bit about you and what you do?
Okay, a little bit about me. How much time do we have? No, I'm kidding. So a little bit about me. I started the agency back in 2017, early 2017. Prior to starting the agency, I was successfully running digital strategy for Lululemon and all of Lululemon's major markets within the US. So this was like back when Facebook pages were booming and Instagram was predominantly used for personal pages, but a lot of businesses were converting over to Instagram. So this was kind of back when I had rolled out that strategy. I had done that really successfully for Lululemon. And there really became this like moment that was like, I love Lululemon. The brand is incredible. It was incredible to work for, but I wanted to do it for more. I wanted to like create, I guess, ultimately success stories for more than just one brand, right?
Yeah.
So I started the agency. Ultimately, what we specialize in is brand integration, disruptive digital strategy, organic disruptive digital strategy, and community activation. And so a little bit later, I'll kind of dive into like, I guess, what those three sectors mean and how together they're the most powerful that they can be. It's really like this just like super kind of secret sauce recipe, I guess you could say, for just a really powerful marketing strategy. And then that actually like yields a result, right?
Yeah.
So we'll dive into that a little bit later. But I started the agency in 2017 based in Chicago. Fast forward to today, we've impacted like over 250 brands and businesses, including, like a Tony Robbins, Nordstrom, Design Hotels.
That's awesome.
The list kind of Jameson Sotheby's, the list goes on. What's really cool about our agency and what makes us unique is not that we have an industry niche, but rather that our process is niche. So really, we believe that our process can help any industry, brand, or business. And what's also really cool, another area we've kind of specialized in over the years that I find the most fulfilling is really helping distill strategy kind of from the ground up and then really grow personal brands. I believe every human is like a walking brand, and they really are. They've got the ability to do really kind of whatever they want based off their experiences and their purpose, what they're really great at, what fulfills them, and ultimately develop, a product or service from a place of solution that, again, relates back to like their own personal experience. So that's kind of been like our sweet spot over the last few years, is just really helping personal brands. But we are just really excited that we're still standing. We're still standing after COVID. And that actually was our biggest, really kind of 2 years as an agency, to be honest. It was when everyone kind of had that oh crap moment and wanted to work from home, but didn't want to work for someone else's dream. They wanted to work for their own. So they were starting businesses and really trying to get themselves off the ground. And so we were really booming during that time, specifically helping personal brands. So
that's awesome. That is really cool. I know I love hearing the stories through the pandemic, because so many people figured it out and were able to, not the majority, but a good amount of people I've found and talked to, like, we had our biggest growth year, especially in the marketing field, like during those 2 years, if they were able to kind of figure out how to help people that were kind of making that transition. That's awesome.
No, absolutely. And it was like one of those years too that everyone was like, ooh, and kind of even now, like we're in that place now where people are like, I should scale back my marketing budget, or like, it's kind of like, like that's actually like one of the last things you should do, right? Like this podcast is centered around, highlighting marketing agencies, and like, so you guys know, like that should be one of the last things that you do, because if you just completely pull the plug on your marketing, you might as well completely pull the plug on your business,
right?
So yeah.
And I love what you said too about how you didn't necessarily have to niche into an industry, but your process is niche, and how you do things and how you have honed that so well. You can help a myriad of different industries and brands, and even personal brands. That's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
So let's dive into, let's like first define how you define disruptive digital strategy. You said like from an organic place. So give us kind of your background of like, how do you define that and what does that look like?
Yeah. So it's interesting because there's a lot of books that say the opposite. So it's like, it depends on who you're talking to, right? Depends on the audience when you're having this conversation. They're like, yeah. And it actually says like, don't disrupt industries, or like, don't be overly disruptive. And we've actually found the most success and growth organically in the brands that we position in a really disruptive way. By that, I mean, there's a strong difference between, I want to just be successful in my industry, or I want to be a thought leader of my industry, which those kind of provoke two very different strategies when it comes to marketing. It's let me create a marketing strategy around lead acquisition, or let me create a marketing strategy around cultivating awareness and a movement, and therefore I will generate mass amounts of business and likely even press, because I'm doing something slightly different than the norm of the industry, which allows me to kind of run in my own lane within that industry, right? So disruptive, like a great example of this is like when we were really kind of testing this. I mean, honestly, it goes back to the day of us testing this with Lululemon. Like, look at how much like kind of negative and positive publicity, a company like that has gotten. You don't see them doing traditional forms of marketing. They're not really on billboards. They're not, commercials don't really exist. They're not a Super Bowl ad, like, how they do it and how they even got their start was like, Chip, their founder, way back when, inviting a bunch of people to like basically run like a half naked marathon and show up at the Lululemon store as the end destination, and then get a free pair of leggings. Right. So it's like, it's really genius and really quite cheeky. That is in itself kind of like the definition of just being disruptive within your industry, doing something that really makes you stand out and might make people like pause and be like, wait a second, did I hear that right? Like, are they actually doing that? But it's so brilliant. It's so brilliantly thought through and so brilliantly done. An example of this, though, that we've really tested within, an industry that's pretty, dated, I'd say, is the dental industry. We had a really, really cool client in Chicago that we had for many, many years. When we first started with them, three awesome founders, super cool guys, like really laid back, like younger, had been really successful in opening, at this point, I believe about 3 practices, and staffing those practices, and those practices were full. And so they were doing great, without us. But there was a shift that they knew that they wanted to make, but they didn't know how. And it really was like stepping into this space of, how do we create the headline for the industry instead of like just comply with what the industry is doing, or just comply to stay up to date, or just comply to make sure our practice is full, which those are all great things, right? But like, they wanted growth. And so they really had some really awesome offerings already as a dental practice. They were kind of tampering in the like dental kind of tech space, because of their like onboarding process of new patients. And then they were also dabbling in the dental tech space because they were partnered with Invisalign to essentially like create a accelerated version of like, an accelerated but more controlled and legitimate version of the like boxed retainers you can get, like that show up at your house that you're like, create your own retainer without a dentist. They're like, okay, we're not like, that's not what we're trying to do here. But So yeah, they really created their own technology and they were really paving a way, but they didn't really fully, they knew how to implement it within their practice, but they didn't fully know how to create like awareness around it or be essentially the thought leaders attached to something like different and
Right.
cool. So it's really started out with like a rebrand. For them, we had to get, their HR co-founder behind the language. We had to get their, hiring manager behind the language and their ops manager behind the language. The marketing co-founder and I were just like, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
But we really wanted to target this millennial Gen Z.
Yeah.
And so what that meant is that we needed to be really cheeky in our voice. What it meant is that we needed to really capitalize on current trending topics, so pop
Right.
culture or things that were taking place that that identified demographic would actually care about. It's
Right.
relevant to them, and we had to take that and spin dental into
Right.
it, right? And so, like an example of being disruptive is if you're being really cheeky, it's like dentology. We do it in your mouth. It's like something that you're like, did they say that? Can they say that? Are you sure that's allowed? But also that's really freaking funny.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Totally.
Like that is an example of one of many examples of disruptive marketing.
Yeah.
And how we would define it. I mean, you're really being a disruptor for the purpose of generating awareness and thought leadership within an industry rather than just sustaining and growing the business.
Right. And I think there is a massive difference in that, like you pointed out, because you get lost in the noise of what everybody else is doing
Right.
when you're complying to what, the industry is doing or what's accepted or normal. It's really hard to get traction, and you may have steady growth or you may have, or just sustain where you're at, but it's hard to really scale like that.
Yeah. And like the results of that, I'm not kidding. I mean, it's so like astonishing, but the results of that was over 45% of their new business was coming through Instagram. They went from 3,000 followers to, I believe now they have, over 17,000. I convinced the marketing co-founder, the one that owned the marketing kind of sector of the business, I convinced him to convert his private Instagram account to public. He got on TikTok during COVID. He's a cute individual, so it worked in his favor. He blew up. I mean, he's got millions of followers now on TikTok.
Wow.
He's been published in GQ magazine. He's been like, the National Association of Dentistry has accredited them, acknowledged them. One of the largest VCs in New York found them through TikTok and actually are now funding their venture to open 14 new practices in the next 24 months. So across the country, and so we weren't doing paid ads. Like this was it. This was it. This is how we grew. We grew through content that sure created noise. And sometimes that's like the holdup in like, I don't want to be disruptive because I don't want the noise or I don't want the negative like backlash.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I mean, it sounds so cliche to say, but like there is no such thing as bad press.
Right.
And if there are eyes on you, it means people are listening. And if you have something to say, you can convert them at the drop of a hat because they are clinging to your every word, whether they agree with it or not. And so it's like, I mean, it is actually and truly one of the most organic and quickest ways of scaling that we have experienced and we've seen and we've tried and we've tested as it relates to marketing.
Well, what's interesting too that you pointed out is you got the did you say it was a marketing co-founder to get on TikTok? And that's the part, this is the interesting part, especially when it comes to agency owners and their clients, right? They want to be behind the scenes, like the owners, right? They don't want to put themselves out there, but what happens is when you actually do put yourself out there in a way that's strategic and it works, and it's well thought out, you actually can grow your business through your personal brand. And I think people separate those when really one needs the other.
Yeah, they should never be separated. I mean, similarly to how you guys have a business and you have a podcast, it means you have an experiential aspect to
Right.
your business. The goal is to funnel people through, and it's genius. I mean, I'm calling that out because this is, I think, just a very common mistake in a lot of businesses today. That you're exactly right. We think that our business is our business, and we are our own person, and they're not separate. And so a lot of the work that we even do to get, because half of it's therapy and counseling and life coaching, to even get almost like a business owner, like comfortable with like, one, showing face, and two, maybe doing something that feels like a little against the grain. It really takes us like pep talking, like
totally
coaching, like kind of shaking them to be like, just trust us, like we promise. But it's a really hard concept to cling to because it really does involve a little more interaction and kind of uncomfortability at the forefront. And then what the result of it could be, though, is so much bigger than any strategy that you could like sit in a room and think through. Like if you just did it, even though it's uncomfortable, and you just implemented it, you would just but you actually did it, not like half-assed it.
Right.
I don't know if I can say that on here, but that was like one of the caveats of like the dental practice. Like at first we would put stuff up. I mean, it took a year to get there. I guess I do want to throw that out there, right? Because it's realistic to make that call out, is like, it took a year to get everyone on the same page. And really, even then, when that VC like invested in the company, they hired actually the CEO of Redbox, like the founder and CEO of Redbox, to come on as their CEO, because they needed some sort of like official face. And of course, this guy was like, I don't like, why are we focusing on TikTok? And it's like, well, because 45 to 53% of our new business is coming through TikTok and Instagram. So that's why, like, the proof is in the numbers. So it's just like, but it takes a minute to get everyone on that same page, especially if the business has been established for a long time. Half of their marketing team is like new age millennials, Gen Zs that want to throw all these really cool, innovative, strategies at, a room of people that need to agree on it. And then the other half is like, they're still stuck on like sending like mailers and like,
especially in the dental industry.
Especially in a dental industry.
I did dental marketing for a couple of years, and the pain of trying to convince people to move on. It's
quite crazy, but it's the results are there. I mean, the proof is in the pudding. It's pretty tremendous what can happen when you just kind of turn the table.
Yeah, absolutely. So earlier you were talking about like the 3 things that kind of make up your secret sauce. Can you highlight those again and kind of dive into that for a few minutes?
Yeah, I can. I think the thing that what we've found is, and again, I think that this is something that's so unique to us, that I've found, because I have a lot of friends in the industry, either also founders of their own agencies, creative agencies, marketing agencies, PR agencies, etc. The thing that I think makes us really unique is that there is an entry point to our business, and someone can't just come to us and say, yo, make me a website. Even if they dangle $20,000, $50,000, $100,000 in front of us, because at the end of the day, we could make you something really spectacular with all the bells and whistles, and it's going to look really shiny and new. But there's a reason you're coming to us needing a new website, and it's not just the fact that your website isn't performing. It's likely that how people are finding you is like what TBD. Like, it's like, are you on Instagram? Is your Instagram presence like crappy? Are you on the right platforms even? How's your SEO? When they do finally get to your website, let's say your Instagram's incredible and they click over to your website, does your website and your Instagram like match? Like, people confused, or like, is your messaging, is your purpose, is the problem that you solve for clear? Does that like resonate the moment someone clicks from Instagram to your website, or from Facebook to your website, or TikTok to your website, whatever it is, YouTube to your website, it can be any of them. If they land on your website, is it clear within the first 5 to 10 seconds of someone landing in that space, or do they have to dig for it? And if they've got to dig for it, that's like
game over.
problem number one.
Yeah.
So the goal is for us is that we really, no matter what point your business is at, we do a brand, like essentially like a wellness check.
Yeah.
Like we're like, is your purpose statement, is your mission statement, is your language, your voice, your demographic, is it clear? Do you know what problem you solve for? How quickly can you articulate the solution to that problem? Do you have it broken down into steps 1 through 3 so someone can really easily know what is going to be required of them, and then what the outcome of that is going to be, right? And if that's not clear, then like us building you $100,000 website is not going to be the thing that like magically like makes you turn the corner, for the growth of your business. So we start with brand integration, and that is the part of brand integration that I think, again, it makes us really unique, because you don't just get us to be your social media manager. We do an assessment, we do optimization of all of your profiles, of your language, of your demographic, all of that. We make sure that it first resonates with your ideal audience. We take a pulse check of your brand recognition ultimately, or we help you build it from the ground up, because you're a startup, you don't know what that means, or we help you rebrand. So brand asset development falls under that umbrella of that first pillar, brand integration. Brand asset development, rebrand, package design, web development, web design, brand strategy. Like a lot of what we do is literally development of key preliminary like assets of a brand. Do they have a brand guide? You'd be flabbergasted. I mean, I'm sure you actually already know this because you guys are in this world. How many brands we talk to, like, I don't know. I don't want to throw any of them under the bus, so I guess I won't. One of them as an example. You'd be surprised how many we talk to, and we're like, let's see your brand guide. And they're like, yeah, like it's not great. And we're like, what? But you're so-and-so. Like, how do you not have a brand guide, that you're proud of? That just goes to show that that needs to be the first step before we can strategize, before we can do. Then the next part is, the disruptive, like organic disruptive digital strategy, slash just digital marketing in general. Everything under that pillar specifically is, of course, everything that is everyone knows, right? So social media management, all of those things. But again, there is this barrier to entry where we don't just pick up your social where your last crappy social media manager left off, right? That you were paying $10 a post or whatever, right? It's like we are really, really thinking through and combining the goals of the business with actual content. And then what does that content and what does that voice and messaging look like on the other assets that are like digital spaces that we're looking to funnel people to from Instagram or from TikTok? We're really thinking through, should we be on Pinterest, TikTok, YouTube, or should we be on 2 of the 6 that you're currently on? Focusing those efforts. So it's very personalized. There is not one digital strategy amongst all of the brands and businesses we've helped, including personal brands. There is not one strategy that has looked the same. Not one approach that has looked the same. There is no cookie cutter, strategy or one size fits all for us as an agency. And it feels like a lot of larger agencies have to kind of almost package that process and redo that kind of again and again and again when they're catering to 150 clients, because it's, that's just what they've got to do. That's their business model, right? That's not ours. I mean, we are definitely more boutique. We are all about helping 10 clients that really have incredible missions and know their purpose and really value our process than 50 that don't. Right. 50 that just want it now. So that's also what makes us unique. And then of course that disruptive strategy. So every approach to the content that we create or the messaging that we create or the email marketing campaigns that we create, whatever that is, that falls under disruptive, like digital marketing. We think through how can we be the most stand out in our industry. So you get that from us, you get that strategy from us and us managing your platforms or creating your content. And then lastly, community activation is one of my favorite. It's probably the nearest and dearest to my heart. It also relates back to my days at Lululemon, where Community activation is like not influencer marketing. Let's just pay this influencer, $5,000 to like do this post and then like get it out to their people. It's like who actually is going, we call it thought leadership, or we call it strategic business partnerships. So it's not foreign. It's not like we've recreated an entire wheel. It's like, again, our very tailored in specific approach to it. So it's let's say our client is Bud Light, and Bud Light launches Bud Light 2.0, and their target demo is the demographic, say similarly to Peloton.
Yeah.
We'd be like, yo, Peloton, how do we collab? Right.
Yeah.
And instead of us paying influencers to just generate traction, we're also looking at thought leaders. If it's a residential property, or that actually, let's throw out like the example of like, let's say it's a med spa. Who's a med spa's like ideal client? Probably someone who's buying $1 million listing. So instead of using an influencer who probably has a following that isn't going to spend on average a week $1,500, let's say, in face regimens and routines, someone who's buying $1 million listing or a multi-million-dollar listing might. So let's partner with a luxury real estate agent that has maybe 5,000 followers rather than someone that just has 15,000, right? So we're really thinking through and breaking down how and why we're strategizing with and collaborating with different people. It's just a much more modern approach, I think, to PR and influencer marketing.
Yeah. I like that. And, there's a lot of strategy you can tell that goes into that, and who you're picking and why. And it's not just about the numbers. It's about who actually is that market, and are they people that would buy or not? Because you could have 15,000 people that are following someone, doesn't mean they're the right audience.
No. Right. Or that they're even located where you're selling
your
product. Like,
also true.
That's the other thing. Like, where's your demographic located? Okay, like in China, like cool. That's not like we don't sell abroad, or we're not international. So it's like, that just eliminates, 80% of your 80% of your following. I mean, these are questions we need to probably be in better practice of like asking. Right.
Well, is there anything else before we end? This has been such a great episode and just a great conversation. I love all the stuff you brought to the table. Is there anything you'd want to sum up or kind of add in that maybe we haven't said yet?
I mean, I just am like a huge fanatic of better understanding brands and businesses, like just purpose and mission and like desire for impact. And so what I will say is like, we are an open book over here at Connective. Like, we are yes people through and through. I mean, hence us saying yes to like being on this podcast without, very minimally like knowing each other and like the background. It's because I just always think there's an opportunity to collaborate and to impact, people that you may not even know you're impacting. Right. And so for me, I would say, like if there are questions, if there are like things you want to share or like insights you want from us, like we are not looking to like nickel and dime, people. We are looking to just like collaborate and just be in good conversation with like good people. So if there's anything that like you guys, want to pick our brain over, because I know a lot of it was probably more of the backstory, and I hope it was still helpful, but we're just game to strategize with whomever. So just reach out.
Yeah. And where can people find you online?
Yeah. So Instagram is really great. Our handle is at Connective Consulting on Instagram. And then for me, my direct email, you can always reach out, is connectiveconsultingchicago@gmail.com. Say that 10 times fast, right? Lots of C's. Make sure you're not forgetting I's in there, or N's in there, somewhere. But yeah, so you can connect directly there. We're always in our DMs on Instagram. LinkedIn, my personal account is, Aly, ALY, and then last name Nauta, NAUTA. So you can just look me up on LinkedIn and drop me a note. I will say I'm probably less active on LinkedIn than I am on Instagram or my email. It's a little like shame on me, right? Because I like teach all these things that I might not apply in my own life. But yeah, so those 3 ways are a great way to be in touch.
Awesome. And I'll make sure those are in the show notes. So if anyone wants to reach out, you guys can just click right through an email or go check out Instagram or LinkedIn, maybe Instagram more than LinkedIn, but
maybe Instagram.
Yeah. Slide into those DMs. I think this was a great episode. I think it's going to give our agency owners a lot to think about. I know some people have that thing of like, I don't want to be disruptive, but I think you presented it in such an amazing way of actually, this is how you grow and scale and do it organically, to become a thought leader. And that is what everybody wants to do, is help their clients become thought leaders, help themselves as agency owners become thought leaders. So I think you presented such a great, paradigm shift for people to go, hey, disruptive marketing is actually really good and could accomplish the goals that we have. So that is awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yes. And thank you everyone for listening to the Inbound Back Office podcast, brought to you by Inbound Back Office, plug and play back office support for your marketing agency. You can find Inbound Back Office at inboundbackoffice.com. If you enjoyed today's episode, take a minute, leave us a review, and share it with other agency owners. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on our weekly episodes. Until next time.